Hey everybody, welcome back to Gideon Stuff. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today I want to talk about something a little bit abstract. I want to have a discussion on something a little bit different than topics we've talked about in the past. As people, there are certain experiences, emotions, feelings, events that seem to be universal to the human condition, right? And a lot of these, unfortunately, are negative feelings, right? We've all had our hearts broken. We've all missed that one perfect job opportunity. We've all had to sell that car that reminded us of fast nights in high school. And the same is true of the knife collecting hobby. There are so many experiences that are just universal to anyone that gets into this hobby, and a lot of them are great, right? A lot of them are good experiences. But unfortunately, some of them are not. Some of them are painful. And among those painful experiences is physical injury. So today, we're going to be talking about scars. We're talking about cutting yourself with your knife. Because let's be honest, we've all been there. We've all done that. So before we get into the video, let's go ahead and put some knives out here on the table. I'm going to put out some of the things that I've been carrying and enjoying lately. Civivi Vision FG. I've been really loving this knife. I need to put an edge on this. I gotta say, guys, I might have to do another video on Nitro V Steel because I don't know. It doesn't work all that great for me. That knife, it's still, I don't know. You'll see in the review. But there's the Civivi Vision FG. Also been carrying my Warncliffe Pyrite a lot lately. Really been liking this knife. Well, I love that knife. I reviewed it a long time ago, but you know, it's one of those knives that finds its way into my pocket a lot. A knife that I have carried pretty much every day. This is my Real Steel Solus Light. This is an awesome slip joint. I really, really love this knife. This has become my go-to secondary carry. Absolutely fantastic. Cannot go wrong with that. Also, been messing around a lot with this Camillus G hammer. This is a design by Daryl Ralph, obviously. This is a production version of his gun hammer. $20 knife. Very, very cool. Yeah, you guys know how I feel about Camillus. Next up, been carrying the Sincut Sakshi. Well, not the Sakshi. This is the... got some gunk on there. The Serene. Whoa, need to clean that blade off. I've been carrying this a lot lately. Great knife, can't go wrong with that. The Devo Growler V2. Yeah, love that knife. Murdered Out Feldspar. Great knife there. And the last one we're going to put on the table, the Camillus Rain. Absolutely love that knife too. So there we go. There's some knives, a little bit of eye candy. So next thing I want to do is I want to tell you about the first time I ever cut myself with a knife. So let's go ahead and cut over to that. Hey guys, I'm out here filming for another video, but I want to go ahead and tell a little bit of a story that relates to the knife scars video I'm planning on making. Real quick, right now I'm in the Gila National Forest. I've decided I'm just going to start checking off national forests in New Mexico where I've done filming. You know, I've done a lot of stuff in Carson, Lincoln. Here's Gila. Interestingly enough, over a decade ago, my family lived here, and this is a beautiful, beautiful area. It's got some of my favorite trees. Alligator juniper. Haven't seen any of those in a while. Here's a close-up of that alligator juniper. I bet you can tell why they call it alligator juniper. The bark looks like alligator scales. Very cool tree. I love them. They're really cool trees. Anyways, the story. This story goes back even further, before my folks lived here. This happened when I was 6, I believe. I think it was the summer of my kindergarten year of school. So back then, my dad had a little office
that was kind of a shed away from the rest of the house. And while my dad was at work, I would go to his office and I would draw him pictures. And I'd leave them on his desk, or I'd put them on his little fridge with magnets. And that was great. My dad told me though, hey, you can come, you can draw me pictures and stuff, but don't mess with my stuff. And I was a pretty obedient kid, right? I respect my dad a lot, and I was like, okay, I won't mess with your stuff. One thing he did let me mess with for a little bit was actually his books. And I'm going to tell a side story here. My dad had a lot of books around. He had books on infectious disease. He had books on anatomy. He had biology books all around. My dad's a veterinarian. And one time I was looking through one of his anatomy books, and I learned, I was like 5, and I learned this funny new word, vagina. And I ended up teaching it to one or two of my friends, and it caused a big scene with the parents. But looking back, it's pretty funny. I was reading since I was like 2, and I was a very advanced reader, and I would often teach my friends new words. But anyways, that's a tangent. So during this time, my dad was working for the USDA. And if any of you are familiar with the world of agriculture, a while back, almost 2 decades ago, actually pretty much almost exactly 2 decades ago, the United States was having a big issue with tuberculosis in dairy cows. And so my dad was kind of on the forefront of the USDA trying to solve this problem. And one of the things that he had to do a lot of was necropsies. He had to take apart cows that had died, identify what killed them, take samples and things like that. And so my dad was working a lot with knives. So one day my dad's off at work, and again, it's the summer. I'm a bored kid. I decided I'm going to go into his office. And I'm there in his office, I'm sitting down, I'm drawing, but I get bored. And most of my dad's knives and stuff, he had showed me. My dad was very good about saying, hey, this is my stuff, here's what it is, don't touch it, it's dangerous. If you take the mystery out of something with a kid, they don't want to mess with it anymore. And so he's like, yeah, and most of my dad's knives were, they had plain overmolded black handles and, just straight blade. They look like my mom's kitchen knives, right? And so I was like, those aren't very interesting. But on this particular day, my dad had a knife sitting on his desk that did catch my eye. Real quick, I think I should emphasize that my dad didn't just have knives laying around everywhere. They were in boxes and stuff, and most of them were locked up. The knife that is involved in this particular story, not sure how it got where it got. He might have just forgot it. He was probably busy, very, very busy that morning. But yeah, I just wanted to, I thought that would be something that might be helpful to add. It was in a leather sheath, and it had a shiny guard, a shiny pommel, and a smooth handle. And it was a buck-style skinning knife. I don't think it was an actual buck, but it was a buck-style knife. And 6-year-old me was like, oh, that's awesome. And so I knew I wasn't supposed to touch it, but I kind of went over there and I was looking at it, and it had this little button snap that was holding the knife in. And I thought to myself, I want to see the blade. I knew I wasn't supposed to touch it. So what I did was I pulled the knife out a little bit until the guard hit that snap, so the knife wasn't all the way out of the sheath. And I was like, this is enough, right? This is enough. And I looked at the blade, and it was like a mirror finished blade, and I was just drawn to it. I was like, oh my goodness, that is a very beautiful object. And so I took my pointer finger and I ran it on the edge. Why? I don't know. Kids are stupid, right? Kids are stupid. But it was very sharp. My dad used this knife to take animals apart. He kept his tools very, very sharp. And it split my finger right open, and I started squirting blood immediately. Now, obviously, the injury itself hurt a lot. But that wasn't as much of a concern to me as, oh my goodness, I am going to be in so much trouble. And so I was bleeding a lot. I grabbed my finger like this, and I ran out of Dad's office, and I ran all the way back to the house. It was a pretty good distance. So I run over there. I get inside. My mom is in the kitchen cooking or doing something. I've got blood dripping out from my hand. She turns, she's like, what happened? I said, Mom, I got a paper cut on one of Dad's books. And so, Mom took me to the bathroom, washed me up, put a Band-Aid on it. Everything was good, and I forgot about the whole thing, right? I stayed inside. I started eating whatever lunch Mom had prepared. And then later that night, Dad comes home, and he sits down at the table, and we're all sitting down getting ready to eat dinner. He looks up and says, there's a trail of blood running from the house to my office. And immediately I'm like, ugh. And my mom's like, yeah, Gideon, cut himself with, he gave himself a paper cut in your office. And Dad's like, oh, okay. Interestingly enough, there's also blood on my knife. And my mom gives me this look like this, and my dad's kind of got his eyebrow raised, and I break down and I'm like, oh, it was me, Dad. I cut myself. I'm not supposed to touch it. And, my parents handled it very well. My dad basically told me, well, I've warned you, and look what happened. You're a big dum-dum. Don't do that again. And I didn't. Of course, I think that was actually the first time I ever cut myself with a knife. Obviously, it was not the last. I do still have the scar. See if you guys, maybe I'll show it in the video. It's hard to see sometimes. It has faded quite a bit, but it's right there. And really, maybe you can see it a little bit. Probably not. Sometimes it's easier to see than at other times. I've noticed that if I've been like exercising or working out or something, I'm kind of sweaty and I've got my blood pumping, it's a little more visible. But it used to be a lot more visible. It used to be like this little white line that went pretty much from here to there. But it's healed pretty well. So yeah, that's the story of my first ever knife cut.
Alrighty, I hope you guys enjoyed that story. So, looking at my hands right now, I've got several scars on my hands, and some of them, in fact, quite a few of them, are from knives. If you look at this finger, for example, you'll see that scar, and that scar, and that scar. This one here, I've told the story about this scar quite a bit. I did that with my Tucson 301. My brother's dog bumped my arm while I was cutting up something, and that was a very bad cut. I ended up super gluing my finger back together. It was, really, really bad cut. I still have no feeling in the end of my finger, at least that part of it. I've got feeling over here, but I don't have any feeling in my finger right there. So, nerve damage. This cut is an older one. That came from an Ozark Trail knife when I was 17. I was opening a new pellet gun, and I was cutting a zip tie, and I've been using this knife to skin a lot of rabbits, and it was not very sharp, and I ended up bouncing right off the zip tie and into my finger, which was amazing. Other scars you can see here on the back of my palm. That scar running right there, that was actually done by a rabbit. But the point I'm trying to make is that we've all cut ourselves. And, when you cut yourself with a knife in the line of duty, for example, you cut yourself with a knife because you were using it or something, those are scars that you can be proud of. But we've also, most of us, I think, have cut ourselves while fidgeting, too. I have one scar that I'm not going to show right now. Actually, you know what? Maybe I will. I'm wearing shorts, so here we're going to we're going to show that scar. See that scar right there? Yeah, it's a pretty big, nasty scar. That happened because I was sitting around fidgeting with a knife one day, and I dropped it directly onto my knee and stabbed myself pretty good. So, we've all been there, right? Cuts are just part of the hobby. We collect sharp instruments, right? It comes with the territory. Now, obviously, not all of my scars are knife-related. I've got a few good ones that have other stories. For example, this one here, you can see it goes across my bicep like that. I got that one doing field work when I was scratched by a particularly nasty mesquite bush. I did not expect it to scar the way it did, but it cut me open real good, and it left a real good scar. Another scar I've got is back here, and there's actually a couple of them that were actually from burning cinders that fell on my head and back when I was a kid. There was a forest fire near our house, and the wind changed direction, and it blew some burning embers onto me and my siblings while we were outside playing one day. So all of us have some scars like that. Another scar I have that's a really good one, I don't think I'm going to be able to show it off here, but it's on my foot, my right foot, and it's right beneath my big toe, and it kind of goes like this. And that scar I got when I was 6? No, I was way older. I had to have been 8. I think I was about 8, and I was out in the garden working with my mom and my siblings, and it was hot outside, and I was wearing shorts and Crocs. And my mom told me, she said, Gideon, you can't wear that stuff in the garden. You know, you gotta wear good shoes. And I was like, no, I don't, Mom. So I'm working with a hoe, and I miss the weeds that I'm hoeing, and I slice right through my Croc and into my foot. So that's a good one. I've got one on my knee. Let's see if I can show. Maybe you can see that. That was actually right under my knee. I was 18, and we were working with some cows, and this bull got away from us, and he starts kind of running around. We had this pile of lumber and scrap metal, including some big tin sheets laying around, and I'm on one side of this scrap heap, and the bull's on the other side, and he gets spooked, and he kicks at that scrap heap, and he hits this piece of tin that just shoots across the rest of the pile like a big knife blade and cuts me right across my knee. And then I have a scar on my thigh that looks like a little round pit. And I got that after my cousin Austin shot me when I was 16 or 15. I was at his house, and just kind of hanging out, and I'm sitting on his bed, and he's showing me this old BB gun that used to belong to his dad, an ancient BB gun, and it's all duct taped together and wired up and stuff, and he's like, yeah, you know, I've got this gun that used to be my dad's, and I was like, oh, that's awesome, does it work? He says, no, it doesn't work, it's too old, and it's not even loaded. See, he points it at my leg, pulls the trigger, and shoots a pellet right into my thigh. Remember, guys, gun safety. But yeah, I just want to share a couple of those because I think they're fun stories. And obviously, you know, I think a lot of people, we collect scars over our lifetimes, and they're fun to talk about. And a lot of times, you know, talking about different times you've cut yourself with a knife, you know, you're talking with your buddies, they're funny stories. There are certain groups of people that do not think these stories are very funny at all, and I'll tell you who they are. Wives, girlfriends, and mothers. They do not like these stories one little bit. And probably for good reason, right? I think a lot of people on the outside of the hobby, people who maybe don't understand the appeal of collecting knives, you know, they'll look at you after you accidentally cut off your thumb, and they'll say, wow, that was really, really stupid. I bet you feel like an idiot right now. And you'll say, no, it's worth it. You know, I like knives. And that'll sound absolutely insane to them. For other knife guys, we understand, hey, you just want to play with your knife, and sometimes you don't pay as much attention as you should, and you know, you send yourself to the hospital for stitches. When I was a teenager, I had this really, really weird idea. And this is going to sound awful, and I hesitate to even share this because it's so cringy, but I had this stupid idea that a knife wasn't truly yours until you'd cut yourself with it, right? You had to give it a baptism by blood. And so I wouldn't, you know, obviously I wasn't purposely cutting myself with pocket knives and stuff. That would be stupid. But I remember if I did end up cutting myself with a knife, you know, I was never upset about it because I was like, well, it's mine now for sure, har, har, har. And that's very stupid. It's a very silly belief. Um, but at the same time, once you do slice yourself with a knife, you form a bond with it. You'll always remember that knife. Now, because of the nature of the hobby that we all enjoy, a lot of us get into sharpening. A lot of us, take a lot of pride in our knife being sharp because a knife is supposed to be sharp, right? I also think it's very important to be well versed in first aid, and I think a lot of people are in the knife community. But right now in my desk, I always make sure I've got band-aids with me. Super glue is something that I find to be very important. I have super glued up cuts many times, not just knife cuts, but other injuries I've had. Very, very good. It will scar if you do that, right? If you don't like scars, you probably go to the emergency room and they can help you fix something up a little bit better so that you won't disfigure yourself. But it's important for us to be familiar with how to take care of not just our knives but also ourselves. So I'm going to tell a little story here that actually is not my story, but it's one that I think is good. Guys like scars, right? Guys like scars. We think girls like when guys have scars. I think guys just like having scars more themselves. And obviously, a lot of girls in the knife community also cut themselves a lot. And so when you're in this hobby, as I mentioned before, telling the stories of your scars is fun. It's a bonding experience. But it's a lot funner to tell a story about a scar that was obtained in, like I was saying, the line of duty, obtained during use. When I'm telling people about my scars, the story about this scar is one that I tell often because I was testing that Tusa knife, dog bumped my arm, I almost cut my finger off. That's fun. I made a few shorts a while back when I almost cut my finger to the bone, testing the cold steel micro engage. It's a fun story, right? All right, so I'm working on editing the video right now, and I realized I referenced this injury here that I got from the cold steel micro engage. Didn't show what the scar looks like today, so let's go ahead and do that. Focus up camera, if you would, please. Yeah, so there's the scar. The scars don't pop as good on camera as they do in person. I was going to talk about, this scar on my at the base of my pinky, which, focus up camera, for some reason does not like to show up on the camera, but that actually came from a hatchet when I was young. I'm really lucky I didn't chop my whole finger off. And then you can see, kind of, wow, it looks really different on camera, but you can see this little thing there. That's that scar I have from my sister's pet rabbit. I got that when I was 11, and it used to be a lot deeper, but yeah, you can also see over there's another claw mark, but yeah, rabbits are vicious. I do not tell people the story about the scar on my knee that I showed you guys very often because that's an embarrassing story. That was me dropping a knife point first onto my leg. But there is one knife scar story that I know that I think beats out all others, and this is actually my dad's story. So my dad is a veterinarian, as we've mentioned before. Telling two stories about my dad in this video. And about a year ago, a few months ago, he was doing a castration on a horse. And this was an older horse, and he was having to cut the testicles off. He couldn't band it or anything. And so working with horses is always a little bit exciting because he's a mobile veterinarian, so he works in the field. Clients don't typically bring their animals to him at a clinic. He goes to the farm and ranch and sees the animals there. And so putting a horse under anesthesia is a little bit difficult. Horses are pretty big animals. They've got pretty high heart rates. But my dad got this horse knocked out, and he's down, he's working on it, he's got a scalpel. Well, that horse woke up. And even though my dad had the horse restrained and on the ground, it was still able to flex its body and kind of kick up. It's a big horse. And it sent the scalpel that my dad had in his hand up into his face. Thankfully, it missed his eye, but it cut his nose, and now he's got a pretty big scar on his nose. And that right there, that is a knife scar story that I think is worth telling. And whenever I'm sitting around with a couple of buddies and we're talking about scars, if my dad shows up, everyone be quiet and listen to that story because that's a fun one. But anyways, I think that's going to be it for today's video. I want to hear from you guys. What are some of your favorite knife scar stories? We've all got them, I'm sure. If you've never cut yourself with a knife and you're in this hobby,
You're a bitch.
I'm just kidding. But I'd love to hear your stories down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, comment below, and subscribe. I've been Gideon, and I'll see you in the next one. Adios.